I am Marcus James Dixon with Gold Derby, and we are here with Wade Barnett, the Emmy-nominated supervising sound editor on Amazon Prime Video's The Boys. Wade, talk us through that moment on Emmy nominations morning. How did you find out that you were Emmy nominated?
To be honest, a friend, an effects editor of mine, texted me, congrats, and I really had no idea what he was talking about. And then he broke the news to me. So yeah, that's how I found out, and it was obviously a very exciting moment. And then obviously I jumped online and tried to find that list as
Mhm.
quickly as possible. The sound
Yeah.
guys are always at the bottom, so it took me a while, a while to find the list. But
Yes,
yeah,
and there's always like a million categories and so many nominations you have to scroll through and scroll through.
yeah.
And you were nominated for The Boys also in 2020. And what do you remember most about that Emmy ceremony? Or was that the pandemic year where you actually allowed
That
to go?
was that was at the height of the pandemic. So yeah, that was a real bummer. That was my first Emmy nomination. So I was super excited, obviously. But yeah, we didn't get to go to the ceremony. It was just all virtual. So it was like you pre-recorded an accepted speech in the event that you would win. We unfortunately didn't win, but yeah, it was kind of a bummer. It was right in the middle of COVID, so it's just one of those things.
And do you have plans? I'm hoping to go this year to the Emmys.
Yes, I'm definitely going to go. We have our whole other issue this year, which is the strike, and I've been reading. I don't know what's actually going to happen with that. I think they might postpone it, but I guess it'll all depend on when that wraps up.
hmm And so let's talk about your Emmy nomination this year. You are nominated specifically for an episode, the season 3 finale. It's the Instant White Hot Wild. And I'm curious, how was the decision made on what episode to pick, and how easy or hard is that choice? Because you have to pick one and send to the voters, and they kind of judge that as an example of your whole work for the season.
Right. Yeah, it's a really difficult decision. I mean, some seasons there's an obvious one. This season there wasn't really. There was a few that could have been picked, and I go back and forth with the mixers, because they submit separately about which one we should pick, and which one has the best stuff. So I felt like the finale, obviously it had a lot of really good sound design moments, but also the story kind of all wraps up. So overall it's just a really solid episode.
Mm.
um it's really tough though, because if you go back and look, these episodes are almost kind of like mini movies. So there was a couple other, episode 6, Hero Gasm, was the top contender.
Mm.
I really like episode 7 of that season, just because of the nuance of it and everything. But yeah, it's a really tough decision. So yeah, ended up going with the finale this year.
And so much epicness happened in this finale. Can you walk us through one of the more challenging scenes from the sound department's perspective?
Yeah, I guess it's just the final big battle scene. You know what I mean? Because there's a few different battles going on. You have Queen Maeve fighting Homelander, and Butcher fighting Soldier Boy, and then Annie shows up and helps out with that battle. And then in another room, Kamiko's fighting these military guys. And throughout the whole thing, we have really great music going, and a few stylized sound design moments, like when Homelander gets the metallic straw stuck in his ear. And so there's just a few moments where we really had to weave a lot of different elements. And the more elements you have on your plate, the harder it can be to decide to what to push forward and feature in any given moment.
Mhm.
So that was probably the most difficult, getting through that, because it was a really long scene.
Yeah, it felt like a feature film I was watching, not a TV show on my
Yeah,
television.
yes, it does have that feel for sure.
And I love the moment where Kimiko is killing the bad guy in the finale, and she's attacking him to the sounds of the song Maniac,
Oh
What
yeah.
was it like to synchronize that kill scene to a music soundtrack? Is that something you'd ever done before?
Yeah, no, that was super cool. And I have to take my hat off to, the picture editors and the music editors for that as well. Because, they really kind of helped time that, you know what I mean? So yeah, that was really cool. The way the music played in that scene and the way we kind of went in her world and the way she was slamming the guy on the ground with the beat of the song was, yeah, that was really, really cool.
Mhm. And I remember at first I'm like, wait, is that to the beat of the song? And I rewound it and it was. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
And before all the big battles happen in the finale, there's this really quiet moment where Homelander kills Black Noir and then he pulls out his entrails. And I'm a huge Black Noir fan, so I hated that moment, but I'd love to know more about it from your perspective.
Yeah, I guess that was just all about Homelander feeling betrayed by him. You know, Black Noir was, Homelander's like kind of one of his go-to guys and kind of his support. And he just, yeah, he felt betrayed. So that was the end of Black Noir. You don't want to double cross Homelander.
Mm-hmm. And I'd love to ask some nerdy specific questions about some of the superheroes and some of the sounds associated with them. Let's start with Homelander's laser eyes. You don't want to be on the receiving end of these things. How do you create the noise of the beams?
Honestly, it's a few different layers. You know what I mean? We have like the glowing sound, the blasting sound. We had, our showrunner Eric Kripke likes to, have things feel organic or like they're coming from something that actually exists in the world and coming from the body. So the little sizzle sound is actually some eggs frying that gives it that little sizzle. But yeah, it's just a layer of a bunch of different sounds. It's actually quite many tracks wide, and yeah, but it's just trial and error when you're coming up with that stuff. Adding a layer and see if it works, and if you're not sure if it works, mute it and see if you miss it, and just going from there.
Are you referring to literal eggs?
Yeah, eggs frying in a pan.
Wow.
Just a little layer in there. If you hear it, it's just a little crackle, little sizzle.
Well, I'm definitely going to go back and listen to that now that I know. And okay, some of Starlight's electricity noises. What is the inspiration for those? Do you use lightning at all?
I don't think there is lightning in that, but it is a really big build. So I would have to go back and look, but it kind of changes depending on the scene, because it always has to do with how she's drawing in her power. And the way she draws in her power is like from whatever is in her environment, right? So so it kind of changes, but the blast itself is one specific sound that we kind of use, and we alter it differently based on how she's drawing in her power. And then in this last scene in the finale, we even kind of spruced it up even a little bit more, because she's kind of having her moment where she kind of learns how to fly or levitate. So yeah, it changes depending on the scene.
And a newer character, Congresswoman Newman, she has this power where she can make a head explode. And I'm wondering, how do you go about creating that sound of a head explosion? I mean, there's not a lot of real life inspiration out there that you can utilize to your benefit.
Yeah, it's a lot of different sounds. There's like a canister popping sound that's a little bit more. It sounds like a bigger like balloon pop, but a lot of that is just gore stuff. Really wet, bloody elements, skull cracking elements, all that kind of stuff. And we had established that in previous scenes. There's one scene in a previous season where they're in the courtroom and she's just popping heads left and right. And it was all really about the gore, to be honest. Our showrunner really loves the wet wet, gory sounds. So we kind of lead with those and in those moments.
And we had a new cast member join in season 3, Jensen Ackles as Soldier Boy. What was it like working with Jensen? What did he bring to the show?
He's super cool. He's from Texas. I'm from Texas. So we had that in common. But he's a great actor. The character's amazing. Which is really cool because that was the one big thing that we had to kind of tackle this season, was figuring out his new powers, right? Because a lot of the other stuff was established. So just his whole energy build and how we know what that sounds like when he makes his blast. That was kind of like our big to do of the season. So, but yeah, he's a really nice guy. Working with him in ADR, and he was awesome.
And midway through season 3, you get to work on a full-on musical sequence set to the song "I Got Rhythm," choreographed by Amy Wright. What do you remember most about that experience? You probably never thought that you'd be doing a musical when you signed up to work on a superhero show.
Right. That was kind of a curveball, but it was really fun to do. The music department handled a lot of that. So I got to give them credit for that. The main thing that we really had to dial in was the Foley sounds. And our music editor, Chris Brooks, helped out with that a lot too, syncing it up to the music. But, recording the props with our Foley team that does all the props and footsteps, they helped out, and we did some sound effects editing as well. But then just, matching out that up to the syncopation of the song, just to give it that live feel, which is really what you want from a musical. You know what I mean? You don't want it to sound super stale and dead and not have any life to it. So that's what we really spent a lot of time on in the mix. And obviously our re-recording mixers, Alex Fairman and Rich Weingart, had a big role in making that come to life too, making it sound like it's in the room and getting the Foley to sit in with the song.
I loved it. Yeah, you should all be so proud of yourselves. That musical scene was something I've watched over and over and over. And
awesome.
I'm curious, when did you know that this was a profession you wanted to be in, that you wanted to make sounds for a living? Was there a movie you watched when you were a kid, or a show or anything like that?
Well, I've always been a huge fan of film and television. I studied broadcast production in college, but I didn't really know that this is what I wanted to do. To be honest, when I first moved to Los Angeles, I wanted to work in recording studios, making music. I grew up playing in bands, and I didn't really know, when I was 22 or 23, like what sound editors did for TV and film. I was a little bit naive in that regard, but when I went to school, I came out here and went to school for audio engineering in LA. And then I kind of realized, because they had some classes on editing sound effects and dialogue and that kind of stuff. And then that's when it kind of clicked, that was a job, to be honest. I mean, I think that I just never really thought about it. I was more focused on music just growing up. Once I realized that was an opportunity and the things that people did, then I kind of became obsessed with it.
Mm-hmm. And what are some misconceptions people have out there about sound editing, or another way, what are some questions you get from people that maybe don't understand something that you do?
I think most people just generally kind of focus on, like, when you say it's sound, they think music. They don't, or they think that a lot of the effects that they hear in a TV show or a film, like a car chase, for example, I feel like a lot of people think that that's like what they recorded, like on set. And they don't realize that, the only real goal of on set is to capture the dialogue clean. You know what I mean? Everything else is added. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think a lot of people don't really understand, it's like, before I was supervising, I did a lot of dialogue editing, and they're like, dialogue editing, what is that? What are you doing? You know, it's like, oh,
Mhm.
you're picking the mics and you're cleaning up the, you know, scuffs and the clicks and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I think most people just don't really, you know, spend too much thinking about it. You know, they're just
Mhm.
watching the show.
You really only notice as a viewer if it's done poorly, then you
Right.
notice. But when you do a really good job, the idea is that we don't notice things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because I have like family members and friends that I've like, you know, they know that I've been doing this for a long time and they still will see me and they'll be like, yeah, you do the music for that show, right? And I'm like,
Mm.
I don't do the music. So
Well, thanks again for chatting with us and best of luck at the Emmy Awards.
awesome. Thank you so much.